Hey, how you doing, dudes? I'm currently doing a video on slip joint folders. I've got 4 to make. I'm doing 2 here. In order to keep that video clean, I want to show you how I make the phosphor bronze washers for the folders. I ended up making my own because I couldn't find the exact size I wanted. Plus, these things are very expensive. I've seen 2 washers sell for £7 on certain knife makers websites, and they're the wrong size for what I want. This is how I make them. It's very simple. You just need one tool. These are 2 feather pattern folders. Forged this steel out a couple of weeks ago. It's still oversized. It needs some grain refining. Then it will be surface ground, and then it will be heat treated and surface ground again, probably ending up around 3.5 to 4 millimeters thick. I've cut these springs from 1095 and I've got my brass liners ready all for the frame. And there's my phosphor bronze washers, which sit between the blade and the bolsters on the frame. And these washers are 0.25 millimeters thick, or I think it's 11 thousandths of an inch thick. Perfect for what I want. And this is the pattern I'm using. I've just changed the patterns ever so slightly, so I've put that little there. I think that looks quite nice on that blade. I've also changed the handle slightly, so we're kind of more like that now on this folder. And that's the pattern for the back spring. But yeah, that's where the little washers sit in there. That is where the little washers sit in there, and what it does, it stops the blade getting scratched on the bolsters. It's also a really good bearing surface as well, and I want that bearing surface the maximum on the end of my knife. So that is 16 millimeters on there, and I want to cover all 16 millimeters with my phosphor bronze washers. So to make these phosphor bronze sheet, this is 0.25. You can get a really big piece of this, sort of an A4 sheet, for about 11 quid, something like that. You can make hundreds of washers from it. But all I do, I get the 16 millimeter mark and I scribe down with my verniers, and then I put scratches across, and I cut this out with the scissors or the snips. I then scribe another 2, and I generally get 4 washers off a strip, and then I'll do another one, so I end up with 8 washers, which are in squares. What I then do, stack all the squares up, wrap them in masking tape all the way around, and put a cross on from corner to corner so you've got dead center. Then you need to make one of these, which is just a clamp to hold the washers in place. A little bit of mild steel, hold them together, drill the holes through so they're dead precise, put the bolts in, and then drill a hole through the middle. I've actually got 2 in this. I've got an 8mm hole, and I think that's a 5mm hole for doing different methods of construction. Slip in your phosphor bronze pack and just get your pack right in the center of that hole, like so, and clamp this up. Undo them screws up and clamp the whole thing tight. Put that in your drill press. You need a sharp drill bit, and you just need to go nice and slow and let the drill bit do the work. Don't try and push it through because you'll deform the washers. Once you've drilled your hole, take your pack out. You will now have an 8mm hole in that. Then what you need, this was an 8mm bolt, and I put 2 washers on. Those washers have now been turned down to 16 millimeters, so I know the exact dimension of my pack. You slip your pack onto there and clamp it between those 2 washers. Tighten your first nut up. You could use 1 lock nut on this. I just find it easier with 2 nuts. You tighten your nut up, and then you lock your second nut against that one. I do this on my Myford lathe. The Myford only spins one way, which is towards me, so it does have a tendency to undo those bolts. Sorry, it's sat that way in the lathe, so it does have a tendency to undo those like that once I start cutting on this. So I just have to go slow. Initially what I do, I just take the corners off on the grinder, and then I put it on the lathe and I turn it off to the outside of those two washers, and then I know that my outside of my bronze washers is 16mm. You can easily do this, and I have done it before I got my lathe, on the belt grinder. Again, just knock the corners off by hand, put this in your cordless, spin it counterclockwise so that it's actually tightening the nuts up as you spin it against your belt grinder, and just spin it against say what, 150 grit, 200 grit belt, and take them down to your outside dimension, and that is it. As simple as that. You end up with these really nice, neat phosphor bronze washers. Once you've taken them off, I do kind of just put them on a bit of 2000 grit, gently just touch the faces just to take the sharp edges off on each side. And you can make as many as you want. There's a few spurs there for I've got. So yeah, and that's how I make my phosphor bronze washers, guys. Simple. I'm going out on my bike this next week. The summer's arrived. It's either pouring with rain or blistering hot, so I'm hoping it'll just cool down a little bit next week and I'm not cooking on the bike. But I'll maybe take the camera along, see where I end up, put a bit of footage on. You can watch that. Alright guys, thanks to my patrons. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.